Hi there, it's Nicole here with a Father's Day shaker card featuring some cute fishing images from a couple of previously released Simon Says stamp sets. And then I've combined that with the awesome Big Dad die cut to create this shaker kind of card with the wonky rectangles frames and then the drifting stitches borders to create those awesome waves. But what is really fun here is the background was all created with Distress Oxide inks. This is my first time really playing with an assortment of the inks, and I absolutely love them because they've got that pigment, dye and pigment ink to them. The ink sits up on top of the paper a little bit more. You can get some fabulous layered results like you get with pigment ink, where it's very easy to stamp on a darker color and the ink doesn't absorb into the paper where it fades so much, which is fantastic. I am die cutting a couple of pieces of Canson watercolor cardstock with the largest wonky rectangle die. This is going to be the background and then the front waves of the shaker. So I need two of these rectangles. From one of them, I'll be die cutting the waves. And what's fun is it cuts a die or a rectangle shape, but it has that fun kind of, as it's called, wonky stitching look around the edges, which really jazzes them up a little bit. Now from that top panel, I am die cutting the Big Dad die cut. There's also a Big Mom one, and these are fantastic for a big, bold greeting. Instead of using it where I use the die cut letters, I'm actually die cutting it from the panel, and I want to make sure I keep all of the inside pieces plus the letters. The letters are going to help me line it up, and I can save those and use them for another project if I want to. But this is going to be the window for the shaker card. These are those drifting stitches dies or borders, which are fantastic for lots of different things, but I love how they kind of match the feel of the wonky rectangles. Now I am using Faded Jeans, Broken China, and Cracked Pistachio Distress Oxide inks to create my ocean. And I went ahead and Distress Oxide inked both panels. Even though the background panel, you're not going to see as much of that, I wanted to make sure what you do see perfectly lines up and coordinates with the front panel. Those inside pieces for the Big Dad die cut, I'm adding Faded Jeans and Broken China Distress Oxide ink to those as well, because I want those to perfectly match the background of the card or the background of that scene. Again, taking those same ink colors now, blending them. They blend much like the traditional distress inks, but they definitely have that pigment feel to them. If you've ever worked with pigment ink, they definitely have that. I think that you get where the ink sits up on top of it a little bit more than maybe what you're used to with a traditional distress ink or a dye ink. So you get some really vibrant colors here. Now on the top panel only, I'm taking the Waves stencil from Simon Says Stamp, gonna lay it over that and go over each of those sections. So the Faded Jeans first, Broken China second, and finally Cracked Pistachio to do a little tone-on-tone inking. And you can see that it gives that awesome waves look. It adds additional dimension. And where it's got that pigment ink in it, it's going to sit up on top of the paper and you're not going to lose that definition of the stencil. Up on the very top of the background panel, I want to do like a little sunset or something similar to finish off my scene. So I first used Fossilized Amber Distress ink. Then I'm going to go over the whole thing or that whole area with the Tim Holtz Rays stencil using Spiced Marmalade and Fossilized Amber Distress inks. And that's a little harsh. I think that the sun rays are really too bright still or too defined. I'll go back over the whole thing with fossilized amber Distress Oxide ink, and that mutes it just enough. I've got a transparency piece here, and I'm going to simply adhere my 2 wave front panels. These are also the front panels of the shaker to the transparency. I purposely cut it a little bit longer than what I need. I did use the drifting stitches border. And then I'll simply take some scissors or a trimmer and trim off that extra transparency piece along the bottom. I went ahead and left the transparency long because my wave, that background wave, was actually die cut from that same rectangle piece. It's not a full panel, I guess I want to say. So this gives it a nice stable surface to adhere both of those on. I'm going to replace my letters into the little cutouts so that I can line up those inside pieces that I've already inked. I'm using some Zotz Bling glue dots to replace those, and then I can simply pop out the positive area of the letter and save those for another project, but my insides of the letters are perfectly lined up. And I think that makes the word dad much more legible to read by go ahead and replacing those little inside pieces. Now I wanted to go ahead and lay out the stamps that I'm thinking of using. So I've got the fishing pole, the lure, and a fish from the Father's Day Finds stamp set, and then some additional fish images from the Best Fishes stamp set. Both of these are from Simon Says Stamp. This gives me a good idea of where everything is going to go. I'll go ahead and take the 2 little solid fish images from Best Fishes now, and using that same Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink, I'm going to stamp these on top of all of the inking that I've already done. And this is where that Distress Oxide comes in so fabulously, I think, because it's that pigment, got that pigment ink in it. This is going to sit up on top of everything else I've already inked, and you're not going to lose the definition of the fish, which is fantastic. It adds another element to this scene card. There's going to be some bright, colorful stamped fish throughout the scene, but this just adds to that whole background feel. I just think these are really fun little images. I'll go ahead and fill in just a few more here and there, trying to decide the best places to add all of these. There is a little eye area on the fish, and I'll take a black glaze pen and fill in all of the eyes with that pen. On a scrap of black cardstock, I'm going to use the powder tool and then stamp the Happy Father's Day from the Father's Day Finds stamp set using Versamark ink, and then heat set this with some white embossing powder, and then simply cut this into a nice thin strip that I can layer over the Big Dad die cut. Make sure and tap off any excess, make sure and try to get any of those little flakes of embossing powder that may have migrated off. I did die cut that into, or trim it rather, into a thin strip, putting a nice strong adhesive. This is the Glue Glider adhesive, Permatack, and just layer that right there along the bottom edge of the card. So there's quite a bit going on the bottom part of the card. Initially, I started with 3 fish, the fishing pole, and then the fishing line with the lure. And most of those elements are concentrated towards the bottom of the card, except for like the fishing pole. And once I get it all together, you're going to see that to kind of make it a more cohesive scene, I need to add a couple more fish up near the top. So I'll stamp and color a couple of additional fish from the Best Fishes stamp set. But they're all colored very, very similar to how I'm doing here. Using some Copic markers, kind of quick coloring. I avoided the eyes. If you want to color even faster and you're going to be replacing the eye with a googly eye of some sort, or the stickers like I did here, you can totally just color over it. No one's ever going to see that. And that would make it a little bit faster if you didn't want to go around the eye. Another idea for the eyes, if you don't particularly like eye stickers or dimensional eyes, you could always go over them with a black glaze pen for the pupil, and then cover the whole thing with a clear adhesive like Glossy Accents for a dimensional raised eye, and that would be awesome as well. These fish are so fun. Neither one of these stamp sets is brand new. In fact, the Best Fishes has been out for quite a while and continues to be one of my favorite stamp sets as far as fish designs go. I think that the images are super cute. I've always loved them. I'm drawn to fish images for some reason. I don't really know what that is all about, but I think they're fun to color. And these are some of the cutest ones out there. I'm going to go bright with the lure. Also, the reel here on the fishing pole, and my fishing pole itself, I'll go ahead and do that in a nice royal blue. Some nice bold colors for a really colorful, fun card design. For the white areas on my little, I kind of think of him as a Nemo fish. I'm just going to put a little warm gray there so it's not so stark white. Then I'll simply adhere the fishing pole, the fishing line, and then the fish that's jumping up to catch that first. Once those are in place, I can kind of go in and fill in with my other two fish designs. And originally my plan was I want two of the fish to be kind of hanging out and hiding back behind the die cut Big Dad area on the shaker, and then the shaker material will shake behind them. So I'm adding some glue dots in a couple of little areas, also a little liquid adhesive right there, I think. I think Glossy Accents might have worked a little better, but that's okay. So these two are going to be hiding out near the bottom. And this is really where, once I get this panel and lay it over the other background piece, you're going to see that the scene needs something else brought up a little higher so that there isn't so much concentrated down near the bottom third of the card. Go ahead and grab some of these fun eyes from the Simon Says Stamp and Doodlebug collaboration sticker set. These eyes are fantastic. If you like googly eyes but have been a little hesitant maybe to use them because of the dimensions, some of them can be quite high. I think they kind of have a high profile and maybe are a little hard to mail. These stickers are super flat. They only have a tiny bit of dimension to them, so they work wonderfully. So all three of these fish have some cute eyes now, and then I'm going to take some accessory images from the Best Fishes stamp set to stamp back behind the area where the Big Dad goes. So some water bubbles that I'll ink up with the Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink, and then the seaweed I'll stamp with black ink and color in with my YG17 Copic marker. And you can see that all of those little pieces will show through the window of my shaker card. Once I had these colored, I really felt like maybe I needed a few more. So go ahead and move a couple of these over here. Line those up. Go ahead and stamp those again. Using the Misty Makes It, if I need to stamp them more than once, I can very easily, one on top of another. Again, just simple coloring with the YG17 marker. And then I'm going to take some Fired Brick Distress Oxide ink and stamp the coral pieces from the Best Fishes stamp set. And again, this is where pigment ink is so fantastic because it's going to sit up on top of the rest of the inking really nicely and not lose that bright red, vibrant color. Here are my additional 2 fish, and I'm going to just cut off parts of them so I don't have to tuck so much underneath that little wave border. Here's my first little fish guy. And then I definitely want to add some fun eyes to these additional 2 fish so that they coordinate perfectly. Again, I'm just going to figure out where exactly this one's going to go, cut off part of the fish, add some glue dots to him and tuck him underneath that wave, kind of sticking up with his nose up in the air. And that rounds out the design so much better. Makes it, in my opinion, just kind of rounds out the whole design so that it's not so bottom heavy. I didn't like the first eye I picked, so I'm going to choose a different one. I'm ready to put the shaker portion together now. I'm doubling up some foam adhesive, and I'm going to frame out the opening in the shaker and add dimensional adhesive up above as well so that the whole panel is nice and raised, and even a little bit at the top of the fishing pole so that it doesn't get smashed or torn. I'm piecing together some of these scraps of foam adhesive that I have. No one's ever going to see it, so this is a great place to do that if you've got some little scraps. I'm using a powder tool all the way around to help keep the little itty bitty beads from honeybee from sticking. Remove the backing from all the foam adhesive. And this is where inking the whole background panel comes in so handy. In a shaker card, sometimes it's tricky to line it up. If you ink the whole background, then you're never going to see a white area around the edges, which sometimes I have. So this really makes it so it's a seamless scene. Go ahead and flip that over. You can shake it up for some nice, fun water bubbles there in the ocean scene card. I'm going to attach some clear droplets from Pretty Pink Posh. These also look like some fun bubbles. These are going to be great for the front panel of the card. I'm using the 4mm size, attaching them with some glossy accents. Even a couple over the shaker window itself coming up from one of these little fish. Also, you might notice that the eyes stickers for the fish that are peeking through the window, the eyes are actually on the front of the window and not inside the shaker. On the inside of the card, I'll add another greeting from the Father's Day Finds stamp set and add a few of those solid fish images from Best Fishes using the Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink. That keeps the design from the front of the card going into the inside of the card and really dresses it up and makes it so super fun. I'll add some black glaze pen for the eyes here for these fish, and this Father's Day fishing shaker card is all finished. I hope this has inspired you to maybe make a fishing card for that man in your life who enjoys fishing. Or you switch up the greeting and this could be a birthday card or something else just by changing up the greetings at the bottom of the card and on the inside. The supplies I used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.